Hello and welcome back everyone to the next episode on SAP UI5 and Fiori training. In our last episode, we talked about drill down to level 3 in our use case for SAP UI5 by adding a additional view and also the routing configuration. In today's session, we are going to proceed further and we are going to talk about the concept of working with OData Services. Towards the end, if the time permits, I will show you the solution of the exercise. So let's begin with the introduction of what is OData Service. So till today, we were using the hard-coded JSON data as our data model. But going forward, that's not real because we are not yet using the real-time data. To use a real-time data, now we will use the concept of OData Services. So what is OData? First of all, let's understand and how an OData service look like to work with. So first of all, when it comes to OData services is nothing but it's a service which will allow us to exchange the data with our server. It's a real-time data. Yes. But what is OData in general? So OData stands for Open Data Protocol. It was originally developed by and later it was acquired by Microsoft. So it's a myth that OData is SAP's own terminology or SAP's own technology. No. OData was adopted by SAP, but it's not SAP's technology. It's a general technology available in market, which is open source. Open source. Anyone can adopt this technology. It's an open source. Microsoft made it open source. So it is an open source, which means you can also adopt OData without paying any license fee to anyone. Yes, that is what OData is. OData is used to create REST-based services. REST stands for representational state transfer. Representational state transfer. So what do we mean by representational state transfer, or also called as stateless protocol? So what do we mean by stateless protocol? Stateless protocol means whenever we use OData and call a service, the request will be received by server and server will process the data and send the response. There is no state which is persisted inside the server. This allows millions of requests which can be served without having large number of computing services involved. Let's understand this. What do we mean? Think about SAP. You all use SAP in the past. So when we use SAP GUI as a user, you will connect to your SAP server via the SAP GUI. Right? This is what you do as a user. So as a user, you connect to SAP GUI. SAP GUI will connect to SAP server. Could be S4HANA, BW, ECC, any server. You connect to SAP as a user. What happens if you go for lunch and if you not saved your SAP program? What happens if you are in the middle of creating sales order and you go for a quick tea break and that tea break extend for 1 hour? When you come back, you get a message from the system that your session was terminated by administrator. I'm sure you would have observed this. If not, please try this today. Open your GUI session and just keep it idle for 1 hour. You will get a pop-up and your session will get terminated. Why it happens? Because whenever a user log in via SAP GUI to SAP server, a session gets created inside the server. A session gets created inside the server. So if the user log in 10 times, 10 session gets created. So each session consumes memory. If this server have, let's say, 10 gigabytes of memory and each session consume 500 megabyte, you can only have around 20 sessions. You cannot go beyond that because each session needs memory to run. That's the reason in SAP GUI you have only a limit of 7 sessions which you can open maximum in parallel. Because each session which you create using GUI creates a session behind the scenes. And that session requires memory consumption. It is kind of allocation of some memory and computing resource of your server. This type of protocol is called stateful protocol. It's called stateful protocol. In stateful protocol, whenever a client, in this case GUI, is calling the server, it stores a session permanently and this session consumes memory. On the other side, we have stateless protocol. In a stateless protocol, this is how your web works. This is how Facebook, Gmail, YouTube, everyone works like stateless. In a stateless protocol, a user will connect via the client. Client here in this case will be the browser. And then you have a web server. It could be SAP server also, it could be web server. Any server. SAP also have web server inside. In this case, whenever a browser connects to the server, it sends a request. You also remember in our first episode of this training, we talked about request response protocol. So client server architecture. So it sends a request. The request comes to the web server. The web server would then process this request. Yes, it will start processing the request. And then it is processing the request, complete request. Once the request is processed, the web server will send the response back to the client. Yes. When it sends the response back to the client after processing, it doesn't store any session. You see, there is no yellow box inside, which means it is not permanently occupying any memory. It's not permanently occupying any memory. Request come, response goes. Request come, response goes. Request come, response goes. Request come, response goes. So you are not occupying computing resources of the web server for long time. Since you are not having any state in the server permanently stored for long time, this is called stateless protocol. It's called stateless protocol. So which protocol is better? Which one is better? Depends on requirement. If you want to run a banking application where you want to know who is the user, when did the user logged in, is the user already having a session, because he or she can open many places, many computer, laptop, mobile phone, the internet banking. You want to track the user and you want an extremely high security and very good experience. Cost is not a problem. In that case, you go with stateful protocol. When cost is not a problem, you care about experience and heavy security. Yes. So then you go with stateful protocol. In case of stateless protocol, if you care about saving cost, then you do not want to store the session on the server side. You go with stateless. Does it mean that there is no security? No. There is still the security like in the web when you log into Facebook, Gmail, right? There is a security. But what happens? The security is responsibility of browser, which is prone to phishing attack, prone to hacking. So it is more vulnerable to hack because if user's workstation was hacked or somebody steal the cookie, they can log into the web server as pretending the original user. You know, these days you hear that somebody's account got hacked. How it happens? Because hackers will steal the cookie from the browser. The session rather being stored on the server side, a small lightweight session, including the credential information stored in the browser. So this is prone to attacks, hackings and attacks. But we taken away the responsibility from server and give it to the client. You see, browser cookie is one of the way to store the credentials of the user so that it will not prompt user again and again to log in. So the stateless protocol is very great cost saving. It's a great cost saving because it saves the humongous cost. Yes. You do not need to have a web server with large amount of memory to serve millions of requests. You can have millions of users and billions of requests come, go, come, go. The same web server can handle that. You don't need to increase the scale of the system. So that's the main difference between how a typical SAP application work and how OData works. The second important thing why we need OData is because we are running applications in mobile phone, in browsers, and there is no way a browser can call directly our SAP modules like function module, report, program, interface, class, body, exits, smart forms, blah, blah, blah. We cannot call them directly from the browser. Not possible. CDS view also, yes. You cannot call any of your SAP objects from the browser directly. Cannot. You need a service in the middle. So there were two protocols to create services. In the past, we used to use SOAP, Service Oriented Architecture Protocol, SOAP. But SOAP was a very heavyweight protocol. And then SAP started adopting OData services. Today on the internet, 89% of traffic is based on REST services, which is one of the OData service. I mean, OData is one of the kind of a REST service. So it has become industry standard and companies started adopting REST. SAP adopted OData, which is one level advance of the REST protocol. It is stateless protocol. Yes. So that's a basic of OData. So remember one golden rule. SAP service or a browser can only talk to OData. Hence our Fiori app also will only talk to OData service. Fiori app can't call your SAP function module, query, result, report, program, classes, body, CDS, nothing. It cannot directly communicate to them. It needs an OData in the middle. So whenever you want your Fiori app or your browser to communicate to SAP server, we need the OData, Open Data Protocol. It's a protocol. You can adopt this protocol in your company without any license fee. It's free by Microsoft. Okay. So it's a protocol to communicate over the web. which means since it's a protocol, it's a rule, it's a game, rule of the game. So if you learn this protocol in the world, whenever you go, any OData in the world, whether it is built using SAP or Java or Python or Node.js or C++, any programming language, the protocol will remain the same. The rules will remain the same. And that's what I'm going to show you next. We will see how an OData service look like in real system, and what are all the ways we can communicate to such an OData service. So let's talk about that. Yes. So how a service look like? Yes.
Anubhav?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. It's in the previous slide you missed adding no. And that there is no way browser can call directly.
Yes.
No, you missed, like you mentioned, there is a way browser can call, but browser cannot call, right?
Yes. Browser cannot call. Yes. We need
Oh,
a web service in the middle. Ah, okay. Understood. I missed the note. Thanks. Okay. So browser cannot call them directly. Very good. So now let's understand how a OData look like and where can you study OData service. So first of all, if you want to study more about OData service, like Anubhav, you can go to odata.org, odata.org. So this is what you can do. This is the best practice. This is basically the complete detail about OData.org. Here you can read about Open Data Protocol, XYZ, everything you can find out all the details. Yes. OData.org, where you can learn as a developer how to start with OData. Complete documentation is available. Yes. So this is for the documentation. But how a OData typically look like? Yes. How does it look like? How can I experience my first OData? So Microsoft provides a sample OData service for learning purpose so that we can experience OData services and understand the protocol. So first let's understand how to access our first service. So let's talk about the very first call where we can access service document. Service document is nothing but it shows collection of entity sets. Entity sets. So let's understand what is an entity type, what is an entity set. What is an entity type? An entity type is nothing but it represents the skeleton of the data. So entity type is nothing but it represents the skeleton of the data. Yes. Suppose you want to develop a application to provide data of sales order. You know that sales order contains ship to party, sold to party, sales organization, yes, distribution channel, division, material data, right? But you know, I know, computer don't know. So for computer to know what is the skeleton of my data, we create entity type. An entity type defines the structure of our data, like fields, key fields. What are the key fields? What is the data type of each field? Length of each field, max length, data type, default value is Is this field can be used for creating, updating, deleting the data? Is this field represent a media structure? All these properties, etc. we are defining using metadata or entity type. Yes. So for example, if you create an entity type, product, which will have a product entity type, contains product ID as a key, yes, product name, product description, product price, yes, product currency, product discount. All these are the properties of a product entity type with their length, string, number, date, timestamp, different data type, pointing to the OData data type. Then comes his entity set. Entity set represent an endpoint. It represents an endpoint from where we can perform CURD operation, create, update, read, and delete. So an entity set represents an endpoint from where we can perform CURD operations. Entity set always corresponding to an entity type. It is created corresponding to an entity type. So from a product entity, we can create a product set entity type. So example, we can create yes. If you want to compare this with ABAP, in ABAP, first you create a structure, right? What's the skeleton of your data? You create a structure in SE11. Yes, that's equivalent to entity type. Then you create an internal table. Internal table is nothing but like your entity set. That's your entity set. So this is how exactly we create entity type and entity set. Okay. Then we have access service document, shows collection of entity type and entity sets. So we need to access the service document. So a service document represents collection of entity types and entity set. So the moment you access a service document, you will get to know what are all the entity sets this service is exposing to you so that you can access the data. Yes. So then we have the service metadata document. This shows complete detail of all the entity types. So in the service document, you just get to know the name of the entity type, but here you get to know complete information of entity type, the complete skeleton of data. To access service metadata document, we use /$metadata. It's a predicate. These are called predicates. Anything starts with dollar is called predicate of OData. So we will use OData predicate to access. So first let's see how to access a service document. So Microsoft gives free OData service. You can just check services.odata.org. And here you can find and see the detail. So you can see we can access this particular service, demo service. This is a demo service provided by Microsoft. You can clearly see that we have multiple entity sets here. Yes. Each entity type typically corresponds to one database table. You see, many are there. Each entity type corresponds to one database table. So now let's go ahead and see this This is our entity sets. As I told you that you can go to check any service. You can go here also. You see this is another service. You can also check this service. This is another service. So this has more. Let's take this one. This has more entity sets. So this is a service document. This is how we can access our first service document. Yes. Which contains the detail of entity sets. Now I want to see the entity metadata. So we can come back and put here dollar metadata. Yes. Metadata. This is a predicate. No matter which OData you're working in the world tomorrow, if I show SAP OData, you can use dollar metadata there also because it's a protocol. It's a rule. If you want to play with OData, this is the rule. So I come here, press enter, and now this loads the complete metadata. You see there is an entity type called customer. Customer has a key property customer ID. Then we have property customer ID of type string. It cannot be left null. Maximum length is 5. Fixed length Unicode. You see company name, contact title, address, city, region, postal code, country, phone, fax. All the properties are listed here in detail with their data type, allowed values, max length, and everything. This is how we create an entity type. An entity type. An entity type. Yes. This is how we create an entity type. Perfect. So this is the metadata document. Every service will have it. You just have to go and check by putting the predicate dollar metadata. So this way you will get to know the skeleton of your data. What's the skeleton of my data? Yes. Okay. So now usually what happens is one database table in your system will be equivalent to one entity type, and from there you create one entity set. Yes. Now there is another thing. So if you typically, let's assume there is a table sales order and there is a table sales order item, and they both are related with the foreign key. Yes. Can anybody guess how many entity type do we have for these two tables? And how many entity sets we have for these two tables?
Two.
Two. Very
One
good
is
answer. So you'll have one entity type for sales order, one entity type for sales order item. From those entity types, you'll create one entity set for sales order and one entity set for sales order item. But then you say, Anubhav, they were also joined together. How can this join transform to OData? So a join at a database level transforms to association at OData level. So in OData service, you will have something called association, which is what we will use to represent the relationship between entities in OData. Okay. Relationship between entities is represented via association. Association. Okay. Let us go ahead and now see. So that was how a typical service look like in real. How a typical service look like. So now we can just go ahead and talk about how to create an entity type and how to create an entity set. Yes. So we will also see experience consuming this data. Let's go and experience consuming this data, how to consume this data in the system. Let's experience that really quick. So I'm going to go back and I will say how to consume data using OData. So that was about the service document, service metadata document. Why it is important to have service and service metadata. Suppose you developed a service and you give it to your counterparts. There is another team who's developing Fiori apps on these services. So they will not come and bug you again and again. They should be self-sufficient to understand OData and uh, understand the contract and consume this data, right? Or for example, SAP deliver a service, but SAP do not share their mobile number with you that you can call on this support number 180000000 and call us and ask us what you want to know. Nobody does that, right? So it's a protocol. If you know the OData skeleton, OData structure, you can yourself get to know what properties does it have, what columns does it have, what is the data type of each property, what are the entities, what are the entity types. Yes, everything you'll get to know by looking at the metadata and service document. So you do not need to call anyone, you do not need to seek support from anyone. It's self-descriptive about all that data. That is the main advantage when it comes to service document and service metadata document. So now let's see how to consume data via OData services. So we'll try to show example and I'll try to also relate to the query, select query. Behind the scene, guys, there is nothing like magic. There is a select query running behind the scene which is fetching this data for you eventually, right? OData can be built using Java, can be built using ABAP, .NET, Python. Yes, it can be built using C++, C Sharp, any language. But since we are focusing on SAP world, SAP Fiori, we will be using ABAP to build OData. However, let's first understand how you consume OData. First, you need to understand how to consume OData, how to consume data via OData. So I'll show you first reading all the products data for this sample OData service. This transform in equivalent code of select star from products. Yes, select star from products. This is what equivalent of read all products. Yes, that's what it is equivalent of. Now next, let's see how to call. So we can come back and on the top we can put products. So here you need to put the entity set name. Entity set name. So let me just go back and show you once again the service document. There was an entity set called products. Yes. So we copy the entity set name, we put it on the top, enter, the data comes out. The default data format is XML, but it looks very clumsy. It looks very rudimentary. So what we do is we usually check the data in JSON format. So for that we use question mark dollar format equals to JSON. And now we get the data in JSON format on our computer. Cool. So this is how you can check first your data in JSON format, which is equivalent of selecting all the records from the backend. Yes, that's a first step. Now you see still the data looks very clumsy. So what Google does, Google gives a plugin. So you can just search for JSON viewer plugin. Yes, Chrome. Just search for that. Go to JSON viewer plugin on web store. This is free web store provided by Google. Come down and use JSON view plugin. This JSON view plugin you can use and you just add it to your Chrome browser. I have already added. Let me enable this item. So I've already added that and I've enabled it now. This plugin you see I've enabled on my computer. Yes. Now if I go back and see the output again, you will see it is well formatted. Wow. Cool, now. So please do not forget to add this JSON view plugin. Yes, add JSON view plugin. I'm going to add this as a hyperlink in our slide so you guys can try later on. Yes. Okay. So that was step number 1, reading all the data for a single entity products. Now we want to read only top 3 products. This is equivalent to select star up to rows. If you work with ABAP, if you didn't work with the ABAP, it's okay. You can ignore these select queries. So this is equivalent to up to rows, n number of rows from your database table. So I'm mapping the corresponding query. Behind the scene, there is a query running. That query I'm putting here so you can understand what's happening behind the scene. Why do we need to read top products? Why? What's the reason? So guys, just think about an example. You have your mobile phone where you're running your Fury app. Yes, your app. And this app needs to read the data from SAP server, SAP web server. And you have a product table, and this product table has 20 trillion products. So whenever a OData call is made to read the data, do you think these 20 trillion products will get loaded in mobile phone within fraction of seconds? What will happen? Yes or no? Will these 20 trillion product records stored in SAP will get loaded in fraction of seconds in your mobile application? And does your mobile have enough memory to store, download these 20 trillion records? Anyone?
No.
No. Which means we can never build an app on SAP because SAP is known for massive data, which means we can never build an app. That's not true. Let's take help from YouTube. What YouTube does. When you play a YouTube video and this video duration is 2 hours, what YouTube does? YouTube starts buffering, right? You call it as buffering, whatever you call it as. YouTube will first load a 2-minute video, just 2 minutes it'll send, and the video will start playback. By the time user finish 2 minutes, next 2 minutes is loaded. By the time user finish 2 minutes, next 2 minutes is loaded, like that. So it keeps loading 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, and user keep watching it. This concept you learn in YouTube is called buffering. A long video is not loaded all at once, rather a video part or a chunk of video is loaded chunk by chunk. So YouTube doesn't load the entire video, rather it keeps sending the browser small chunks of that video of 2 minutes, which is faster, easy to load, and maybe user never watch the entire 2 hour. User will just watch, let's say 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and close. Why do you load everything? Yes, this you call it as buffering. Similarly, in SAP, when you have millions and trillions of data in SAP system, you do not want to take a risk because your mobile itself will not have memory to store 20 trillion record. And if you want to load all the 20 trillion record, it's going to take hours and hours of time, which is going to crash your application. So that's why we do pagination. This concept in SAP is called pagination, where we load data chunk by chunk. How? So a mobile screen is very small. Hardly it can show 10 products at the beginning. Yes. So let's say when the app start, 10 products were loaded. So initial top load count was 10. First 10 records were loaded. Now you know that every application have this small tiny scroll bar. A scroll bar is there. So user will of course scroll. User will scroll up, down, right? So user will just first see 10 records, we loaded top 10. User will not know that all 20 trillion not loaded. It's okay. Now user does a scroll. When user does a scroll, what we do is we say the next chunk. The next chunk is when we skip the first 10 records and we load the next 10 records, which is next top 10. User scroll again, we get the next chunk. This time we skip the first 20 records because 20 were loaded and load the next 10. If user has patience to scroll through all 20 trillion, let it be. But usually no user will do that. You know that, right? So no user will ever have a time to read 20 trillion record. He has not come to application to load 20 trillion. He has come to the application to do his work or her work, right? So this way we can safeguard ourselves to avoid loading massive data which can cause a crash on our application. We can load data chunk by chunk, and this concept is called pagination. Pagination. Very important concept. We will be using this heavily. Many people come to me when this course started, Anubhav, my application, we already have a Fiori app in our company. It's very slow. One of the major reason why an application is slow is because the developers have not properly implemented pagination. They are not loading data properly chunk by chunk. This is one of the major reason why it happens, why the problem happens. Okay, so let's go and talk about how to load the top record. So you see here this data, and I will show you now. Go back ampersand dollar top equals to, let's say 2. I want to load top 2 records. Please enter, and you see we've got the top 2 records loaded on the UI. Fantastic. The number 1 product ID, number 2. In the next chunk, I'm going to skip and load next to. So by the way, this OData predicate you can use in on any order. You can put JSON after, top before, any order you can use them. Yes. Then let's say ampersand dollar skip equals to 2. So please skip the first 2 record and load the next 2 record. Yes. Enter. You see number 3 and number 4. 1 and 2 were skipped. If you skip, let's say skip first 10, load top 3, it will do. So first it will skip the 10 records, and now you got 11, 12 and 13 got loaded. So this way you can do pagination with OData. The order of these parameters doesn't matter. If I put here this, cut it and put it here, the order doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay. That is how we work with top and skip. This is called pagination concept in OData. Very powerful concept, very important concept also. You need to understand pagination if you want your application to work properly. Else you will have deep performance issues in your application. Top and skip, guys. Wow. Next, let us talk about, after this top and skip, let's discuss about filtering of data. Okay. By the way, if you look at the URL of any OData or URL of any service, how the URL is constructed. So first of all, we will have HTTP or HTTPS. That's a protocol. Then we have the server name. Usually we have port number also. Then we have path prefix. Path prefix is usually used to identify the company who is owning this OData. Like in case of SAP, it will be something called SAP OPU OData. Yes. So that's the additional path prefix. Then we have the service name. Then we have slash. We can put question mark. First parameter name equal to parameter value. Ampersand. Second parameter name equal to parameter value. Ampersand parameter name equal to parameter value. So one by one we have ampersand. Each parameter is separated by ampersand. Each parameter is separated by ampersand, 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 like that. Each parameter will be separated by ampersand. First parameter starts with question mark. This is the format of any URL in general which you follow on internet or on OData service. This is the format we will follow. So parameter here are your predicates. So one predicate we saw dollar format, one we saw dollar top, dollar skip. We will see more soon. Now let's see how to filter the data. Basically we want to do select star from database table, whatever table, where condition, and we write a condition to filter the data. Yes, we want to filter the records which we are reading. So in this case, let me show you. I want to read all the products where the product category is equal to 4 or category is equal to 2. Give me all the products where product category is equal to 2. No problem. Go back, $filter equals to product category, category ID. It is case sensitive. You see ID here, I capital, D capital. I'm also putting I capital, D capital. Yes, very, very important. Equals to EQ and number 2. Enter. You can see it has got all the products which has category equal to true, 2. Yes, category equal to 2. You see. One thing you can notice that system have removed my spaces and put here percentage 20, percentage 20. So the URL gets encoded automatically. So any URL when you see, basically this percentage 20 is nothing but representation of special characters. So percentage 20 is indicating here that it is a space character. Space, single quote, all these things are basically nothing but your, yes, they are special characters. They get changed. URL gets encoded at runtime. So this is what we see when it comes to the data. Okay. So we have got category ID equal to 2. We searched. You can also do text-based search like a like command. So if you do select star from database table, where condition, let's say you are searching based on name, like all the products which are starting with A, alphabet A. I want to get all the products which are starting with alphabet A, or let's say product name, where product name contains a string. Product name contains a string. Yes. Let's say cola. It contains cola. Yes. I want to get all the products where the name contains cola. No problem. Come back. We will put here product name. So product name is case sensitive, and we will put substring of. And I will put here cola, comma product name, and we will say equals to true. So this is an expression. We are saying if my product name contains cola substring, that the expression holds true, then please fetch me those products. Press enter. You can see now it contains COLA here, cola. In the chocolate also cola comes. Cola, you see, cola. So it has got these two products which has got product name contains cola. Wow, awesome. Line by line every single call. Next call, we want to read only certain properties. So you see there are so many properties coming. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. Yes. I don't want everything on my UI. I just want product ID, product name. That's all. And is this discounted or not? So why to load everything? It will make my time more. It will take more time to load the data if you load everything. So we can minimize the amount and the volume of data transfer by specifying the column names which we want to load. So you can come back here. You can do this with along with filter. Yes, you can do this without filter, with top, with skip, any number of combinations you can use together. So dollar, you can say select, and I want to load only product ID, comma, product name, comma, discontinued, sorry. Is this product discontinued or not? 3 properties I want. Enter. Voila, you can see it is just minimize the volume of data transfer. It will not load all products, all values together. Yes, that's the beauty of this. So this is equivalent to select column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, and so on from database table. That is what it does. Yes, that is how we can read the data. Perfect. Awesome. Now, the next thing which we want to do is we want to count the number of records. To do that, we're going to go back on the top, we put /$count. And now you see it tells me how many total products are there in the system. That's called $count, to count the number of records in a particular entity set. This is equivalent to select count star, what you do in query. One question to all of you, is this query confusing to you? I'll stop teaching query. I'll directly show only OData. What do you guys feel? Is query important or not? Shall I skip teaching query?
No, no, it is important. At least we can relate. Yeah.
Yes. So you can relate what's happening behind the scene. When you're calling the browser from the browser, the service is eventually triggering some code to fetch data from database. So that is the equivalent code which is getting triggered behind the scene. So you can know at least. So later on, when we build OData ourselves, these queries will help us. Okay. Now, the next thing which we will see is we already talked about the relationship, the association. So two tables, two entity sets, they connect via association. So whenever we create association, a relationship gets created between the entities. So association is a relationship between two entities. Yes. It's a relationship between two entities, how two entities are interconnected. That's a relationship between two entities. To fetch the data between two related entities, OData creates a navigation property. In interview, somebody asks a question, is it possible to create navigation property without association? No. First, you need to create a relationship, which is association. Then you need to create a navigation property, which will help you to navigate. Yes. So association via creates a navigation property. Okay. Relationship between two entities to fetch the data between the entities. Okay. So that is about the association. So in this case, how are we experiencing it? So if you go back, let me try to fetch data for a product. Before that, I want to also show you reading data for a single entity. By key. How to read data? Single entity by key. So we will have select single star from database table, where you will pass the key value, primary key value. You will pass whatever value. So in this case, I want to read product data with product ID 11. I can simply go back, bye to everything. I can just go back here, product, parenthesis 11, enter. You see, now we've got the data for a single product in the output. Likewise, you want to get a single sales order. So we can just go to orders and we will have sales order ID 10248. I can take that, put parenthesis, this order ID. If you have more than one key combination, you can put comma and second key also. Comma, second key also. Like that you can give. So this is the single order we have got in the output. Yes. Single order we have got. Perfect. Now, the next thing which we want to do is we want to go and read corresponding data. Corresponding data. Association. Association is a relationship between two entities. And when you have association, a navigation will also get created. Suppose I want to go and get order items. So this is a order. In this order, we will have multiple items which were sold. But that information is not available here. That information is available with another entity, order items. Yes. So you see order details. So I need to go and call order details, and then I need to filter out manually all the order details corresponding to that order. that order ID 10248. I need to get this. Yes. So I need to manually go and search another entity and get the data, which is very error prone. Yes, error prone. So what what OData does is it gives association. So if you look at the metadata again, you will find out in the metadata, let's go back. In the metadata, you will find out that for a corresponding order, we have the order detail. So we have the order and we have a corresponding order detail here, you see. This is the navigation property. In fact, you see, for a order, there is a customer ID and we do have no clue about who's this customer. We have an employee ID and we have no clue about who's this employee. Is he Vivek? Is he Srinivas? Is he Jack? Is he Michael? Is he Rohan? Who is he? I don't know. So to get the corresponding data from another entities, we can utilize these navigation properties. They come because of association. Because we do association, that's why these are created. So let me show you order details. So I'm going to copy that, come back. And now I'm going to put here $$ expand. Get me the order detail along with my order data. Wow. Press enter. You can see I've got my order details. Superb, guys. Superb. Similarly, I will also go and get employee data. So I can put comma employee. You can see I've got my employee data. Wow. So employee also come, order detail also come, order also come. So likewise, you can put associated navigation properties to fetch the corresponding data of your dependent entities also. Very, very powerful, guys. It's a very powerful feature. What do you call this? How do you do this in query? Exactly. You do a join to get the dependent data. Yes. Tab 1, inner join. Tab 2, on join condition. This is what you do in real life when you want to get the data from multiple tables together. That's equivalent of navigation property and association here in SAP or in OData service. I hope everybody's clear with these important get calls. These are called get calls to read data. I've not shown yet the concept of update or create or delete data. Maybe we will see that in the coming episodes. But this is enough for basics of OData. Somebody who need to understand basic of OData, this part is enough. Now by practicing these service calls, you can get to know what exactly OData is, where can I read documentation, how can I test my first OData, how does the URL format look like, what are the OData predicates which I should know as a developer, and how to access the data via OData service using get calls with different predicates. Any questions before we close today's class?